Okay, we're rolling. Hello. Let's see, today is Sunday, July 29th, and this is your reading. So your question is about your family relationships. So you had said, how will my relationships be in my family? Well, how will my relationships be in my family of origin when my father passes away? Sadly, my dad was recently put on hospice, so this is at the top of my mind. And then we clarified that the main relationships you want to look at are between your mother and yourself and between your brother and yourself. So we'll take a look at the energy of the three of you, and then the relationship between your mother and you and your mother and you and your brother. And there's one thing I should state. The tarot, because all human beings have free will, tarot doesn't really predict the future, but it looks at the energy of things at the time that you're doing it. So, something large, something big could happen that could change. For instance, like with a death, like someone in your family could pass away before your father, in theory, right? Someone could be in a car accident or something, so that would change all of the energy. Or something could be undiscovered if a new version of a will that was previously unknown is uncovered. So those sorts of things where, human beings all have will, we can't really predict. That's why tarot isn't so much predictive usually, but we can look at, typically what would happen with the energy the way it is today. So that's the way I think it'll turn out, the way I do tarot. So let's get started. So the deck you picked in this bag is called the Universal Weight Tarot. And you picked deities. So the oracle cards I picked for this reading are the Goddesses and Sirens and the Gods and Titans deck. The book is by Stacey DeMarco. And the illustrations are done by my favorite oracle card artist, Jimmy Manton, who's from Australia. So I used that 9-digit number to draw two cards from one from each deck for you. I used the number in different ways. So the tarot card that I drew, I like to save to the end. I feel that it often sums up the reading and just kind of ties everything together. Or if it doesn't really tie everything together, sometimes it's like an advice card, like a guidance card for you. So we'll see what that looks like, and we'll do that at the end. Now, to set the tone for the reading, let's see what oracle card you got. You got Athena, strategy. So to set the tone for the reading, what I would get for this is that some of the lessons we're here to learn is that this isn't at the top of your thoughts. So that means you kind of know what's going to be happening. So for your own peace of mind, where can you strategize to make sure that any bad outcomes in these relationships don't happen? Or maybe you can do something to influence that a good outcome will happen for these relationships. So let's just keep that in mind as we do the reading. I'll put that right here. And I already shuffled before the camera, so let's get started. I'm going to draw 3 for a foundation to just kind of look at the situation coming up on what's going on right now. One, 2, and 3. Okay, interesting. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, well, anyway, it's interesting based on your question. So the first card here is the Two of Swords. This is like, there's cards, I can't remember what the term is, that like the colloquial term is, but there's cards that haunt you. So I cannot tell you how many times this card has come up in the last 2 months. It came up earlier today. I did a reading for a friend who's up in the city, and it came up today. This card keeps coming up over and over and over again. So this seems to be a theme for a lot of people right now. So this card was reversed. I'll get to that in a minute, but if you look at the image of this card, it's a woman. She's hoodwinked. And she's hoodwinked herself, right? She's basically kind of receded into herself. She's focusing on trying to make a decision here. So this is the Two of Swords. So twos are often about balancing, weighing options, things like that. Swords are the suit of the mind. So it is all about really weighing options, things that are weighing on you. The suit of air, which air is the element is the element paired with swords. So it's all about intellect, rational thought, reason, and in excess, air becomes things like anxiety and depression, things where your thoughts are running out of control and start affecting your body. So one thing to note in this image is when you're really stuck in your head and you're weighing thoughts and you're trying to figure things out. If you notice the shape of her arms, she is holding these swords and her arms are crossed across her chest. So when you are in a situation like this, it often closes off your heart. So that's something to think about. It's closing you off to emotions, really. And she has her back to the water here. There's some water on a few islands and some land in the distance here behind her. And having your back on water, water is the element of emotion and love and things like that, and relationships. So when you strategize, when you use your rational mind, one of the consequences to that is that you might lose things like empathy. You might lose things like compassion. You might lose all of the water associated things. So that's the danger when you're in a situation like this. And it's reversed, so it's been really hard on you. So reversals, for me, the way I read them, and most people don't read them the way I do, I look at this as just the energy of the card being blocked in some way. So sometimes I might read that as a delay. In this case, I would just read this as difficulty. It's going to be a tough slog. It's been a tough slog. When a family, this is not really informing you of anything, right? When a family member's ill, it's just going to be tough. So now progressing down the line, this core card here, this is the Ten of Pentacles. So in the scene on this card, there's 3 generations of family. There's a small child. There's like sort of the, I guess, middle-aged couple, and then there's sort of the grandparent generation here. And this guy's dressed in lavish robes. They're quite a happy family. So they're also considered to be well off. This is the 10, so the numbered cards are numbered 1 through 10. So this is really the culmination of the suit. Pentacles are the suit of Earth, and this is all about stability, feeling grounded. If it were this or on a different topic, it could be, could be about things like your livelihood, like earning money in order to pay for Maslow's needs, right? Home, shelter, food, heat, energy, things like that. But basically here I would say that, the real crux of this reading is how can you achieve this? How can you achieve the happy family amongst the generations? How can you feel grounded? How can the whole family feel grounded generation to generation? How can you have stability? Because the image here is very stable. One thing to note is that the arrangement of the pentacles too is in the arrangement of the tree of life. I don't know much about Kabbalah, but there's a lot of Kabbalistic things behind the tree of life in the tarot. But that aspect I don't know much about, but I thought that might be interesting to point out. Now the Fool, as we head down the line here, the Fool has been coming up for me a lot lately too. Not as much as this one. But the Fool, it's card number 0. This is a major arcana card. So this would be like the playing cards we use for poker. This would be one of the 22 that are not a part of modern day playing cards. So these all correspond in some ways to archetypes. Or major phases of your life. This would be milestones. This would not, like if you look at your life in meals, you can't remember what you ate for breakfast yesterday. That would be kind of like these cards, right? Like breakfast yesterday. What did you eat? I don't know, right? A major arcana card would be, oh, do you remember the meal you had at Gary Danko? Do you remember the meal that you had at the French Laundry? These are like milestone type cards, so something big. So this card was also reversed, so there's some difficulty and blockage getting to this place, but usually the Fool is considered one of the most favorable cards in the tarot. In fact, a lot of books on the tarot call the tarot itself the Fool's Journey, and look at the next 21 cards as the journey of this character throughout sort of a life cycle or lifetime. I look at it slightly differently. The 0 to me is, I like it, symbolically I think of it as an egg, and by egg I mean in tennis, when you have nothing, you know, it goes 15, 30, like, but when you have nothing, it's called love. Love is actually a corruption of the French word for l'œuf, egg, and it really stands for a zero, but zero, l'œuf, love, that egg metaphor for me really, really makes me feel that this card means being in the womb. And if you notice, like, the fool is always represented as someone who's about to step off of a cliff. So to me right now, he's in the safety of the womb. He doesn't know what's about to hit him. He has a wand or a staff here with a little bag attached to it. So that's on a grand scale. You can think of that as bringing your karma from your past lives along with you. On a milestone scale, on a cyclical scale, this would be just bringing your past experience with you. But he is about to be basically born anew, this character here, into a big new cycle. So there's a big new cycle coming that you're going to be born into, and it's going to be tough because it was reversed. So that's kind of like where, like, that's the foundation where I see things, or at least where the tarot sees things right now. Now, what I'll do is, let me see. I'll draw 3 cards for the 3 cards for the people that you mentioned, and then in between the people, between you and the people, let's pull a card to see what the energy of the relationship is between each of you. So we'll draw 3 cards for the energies of the 3 family members, and then let's draw cards for the energy of the relationship between you guys. So let's see. I'll draw one for you first. Okay. Now, let's draw one for your brother. Okay. Now let's draw one for your mother. Okay. Okay, so you, brother, mother. Now let's also draw, I'll draw the relationship cards now. So between you and your brother. And now let's draw between you and your mother. Okay, so let's see, where's your energy right now? Okay, so, so your energy, again, it's reversed, so there's some difficult times right now. This is another sword thing. So this is the second card of swords to come up. So again, this is about the mind. If you look at the clouds, things are not easy right now. Like if you look at the uneasy way that the clouds are drawn in this card. So you have a figure who's holding 3 swords, and then 2 are the ground. 5, the number 5 is usually about struggle. So definitely struggle on a mental level, because swords are the suit of the mind, reason, rationality and stuff. If you look at the scene in the card though, there's 3 figures here. There's a winner who's like won all the swords, or however you might want to term it here, or he has all the weapons now. And then there's these 2 figures in the background, and they're clearly thought of as losers. And I'll point out that there's water in the background too. So even though the predominant energy of this card is air, the water adds the sense that there's a lot of emotion happening in this card. So this figure, the smallest of the 3 figures, the one farthest away, I mean, he has his head in his hands, and he's basically crying, right? This guy is kind of hunched over and doesn't look exactly happy either. So this card is always about, to me, it's about the cost of winning a battle. So in a way, you could look at this as like on a spiritual, like on a Wayne Dyer level, or on even like a psychological level. There's an element of ego here. So someone's the winner. There's winners and losers, but at what cost? This is always about, like, okay, maybe if you might get your way, but you win, but what happens to the other people when you win? Likewise, you could actually be the loser. So yeah, you lost, and then someone else can gloat. So whenever there's a clash, and whenever there's like a battle, there's always winners and losers. That's the thing here. So it seems like maybe there's some disagreements. There's some sort of intellectual disagreements right now, or intellectual discord. And, one idea may win out, but then it's kind of reminding you that, winning isn't always the best option sometimes. There's consequences to winning. Let's look at your brother. Okay, so your brother got the Lovers. So there's something significant going on in your brother's life because it's a major arcana card. So this is like a milestone. Not knowing anything about what's going on in your family's life, the Lovers could mean a number of things. So the Lovers in medieval times, when people would get married, it would be about contracts or about advantageous unions. Like if you think about the gentry, right? That if a daughter marries a son, it might be because of a dowry. If royalty marries another royal lineage, it might be about stopping a war between two countries. So this is not necessarily about romantic love, but it seems like for your brother's energy, there's some sort of union between him and some other party, or maybe a contract in store for him, or something like that going on, which is also a tough slog. It could be something that's brokered by an intermediary, because you'll notice there's an angel kind of blessing the two lovers here. There's some definite like Adam and Eve imagery going on, but I would say that like from a big life cycle, the wheel, the wheel of life, there's some sort of phase where there's some sort of union going on, with maybe some sort of contractual agreement, and not literally like signing on paper, but like an agreement, like just some sort of agreement. It could be verbal, it could be spiritual. There's on lots of levels, but two things are coming together for him right now, and it's definitely tough. Now for your mom, the Queen of Cups, like they're all like everything that came up is reversed, so everybody's having a tough time right now. So your mother got the Queen of Cups. So the cups, as we talked about, well, I don't know, I didn't say the cups, but cups are the suit of water, and we talked over here about how water is all about emotions, compassion, relationships, love, things like that. And then the court cards are really about how these figures relate to the energy of the suit. So how does a queen relate to water? So queens stereotypically tend to have yin energy. They tend to be, stereotypically passive and nurturing, and whereas a king would be more authoritative, ruling with an iron fist. Queens accomplish things by observing, maybe strategizing in the background and basically fostering relationships to make things happen, not necessarily by wielding a sword. So, and this queen, one of the most interesting things about this card is there's this huge ornate chalice in her hand, but it has a lid on it. It actually doesn't even look like, well, there's a lid on it. It doesn't necessarily look like you can even open it. So this queen, for every tarot card, there's a light side and a dark side. So, yay, you're really nurturing on an emotional level. You understand how to nurture, and you have that energy. But then, you have the lidded cup. And so what does that mean? That means that there's something inside that cup on an emotional level. There's something that's being hidden, that's not free, that could be being repressed. That's the dark side of the card. And I think that there might be some sort of like emotional release needed because there's a lid on that cup. For whatever reason, something's not being expressed, and it's a difficult time because it was reversed. Now, let's look at the energy between you and your brother. So, okay, so there's like, there's another 2. So this is about balancing. And I have to point out, I think like, these 3 came up for me earlier today, all in a row, I think, in someone else's reading. So this is fascinating. So this is the 2 of Pentacles. We talked about Pentacles down here. This is the suit of Earth. This is trying to be grounded. And this card is actually, when you think about it, when you think about the imagery in it, it's actually kind of not being grounded. So you've got a guy who's a juggler. So he's juggling a couple things and he's trying to keep them in motion. There's like sort of a band connecting them. It's an infinity symbol for sure, but but it's like, it's almost like one is the opposite of the other, the way the band inverts. Now, this is about juggling things. About earth energy is about being grounded, but it's also kind of about, like, it could be a home, it could be home life, it could be things to do with home, like your safety, the roof over your head, things like that. And this is a period of instability. This is a period where there is no balance, but you're trying to get balance. So here, something needs to balance out on the level of, like, home life. Sometimes it means livelihood, but on groundedness, Maslow's needs, so food, clothing, shelter, familial relationships, companionship, the things that you need to survive as a human being. And again, there's an emotional element to it. In, like, under the undercurrent, there's an emotional, by not having this balance or trying to create this balance, there's also an emotional imbalance. If you look at the way the water is like these really pronounced waves, like sort of like cartoony, because that it doesn't look like it would happen in real life. And then these ships that are kind of strange angles on the waves, which also can't happen in real life. So there's some definite emotional churn because of the churn and balance that is, like, not quite there yet on the home front, on the groundedness front, and the Maslow's needs front. Let's look at the energy between you and your mom. Okay, so this is the Five of Wands. So fives are about struggle. Like, we have a 5 here. So now this is the first wand that's come up in the reading. Wands are the suit of will, like will. They're also the suit of the fire inside you. Fire inside you meaning, like, creativity, passion. So if you're doing a reading about work, for instance, the Pentacles would be about work in order to make money to meet your basic needs. Wands would be about work in terms of following your bliss, following your desire, following your passions, the kind of thing where it's like, this is wands are about the job where it won't feel like you're working because you love what you do. In this case, in this relationship, I would say that the fire here is more about the will, right? You have two people coming together and having a battle of wills. So there are other cards in the deck where the characters might be in a struggle, but it's clear that one character in the card is maybe in a superior position or is winning. If you look at the way these people are in this card, they're all kind of on this, they're all on level ground. They're all dressed very similarly. They're all a similar size. They're all a similar age. So they're of similar class too, just based on kind of the way they look. So there's like a battle of wills going on, but there's no clear winner. So I would say that the energy between you and your mom right now, there's some sort of battle of wills, willpower, of desires, a passionate disagreement, something like that. And there's just no clear winner. There's no one on the high ground, which, could be good or bad. Like, it doesn't seem like anyone's, like, taking, no one's I can't think of how to phrase it. Like, if this were a moral argument, no one's, like, taking the higher road and someone else taking the lower road. I think it's just a battle of wills for whatever reason, and there's no clear winner on any sort of level. I'm going to pause. My computer went to sleep, but I just want to review your questions to see if there's any other keywords I think I should look at. Well, you know what? I'm just going to draw a card just for the energy of your dad, since this is all about your dad going into hospice. Let me just do that really quick. Okay, let's draw a card for your dad. The King of Pentacles. Okay, so that's really interesting. So now because this card came up, the 10 earlier, the 10 is often about, in a love reading or something like this, when you get the 10 of Cups has a family, but, there's much more, it's a very, very modest dwelling, but they're very, very happy in the card. in this card, there's like a lot of material wealth because they're in this sort of palatial setting, but they're not dancing around and like not quite so happy on an emotional level. So this is the family that's well off and civil to each other, and people are kind of happy like on a basic content. This is like contentment. Whereas like the Ten of Cups has a lot more joy. So this is like a household where, you know, where things are probably, you know, good financially, right? Whereas the other one might not be. Everybody's happy, but they might not be so well off financially. So since someone's about to pass away, I would say that there might be an element of like the dividing up of the estate, causing some disagreements too, because now that I'm seeing this King of Pentacles for your father, this would be like the master of the home. This would be the master of the home and hearth. So king, as in contrast to the queens, which we were talking about earlier, kings rule with authority. Kings are the masters of their suit. So there's some sort of mastery over all of the things that we talked about for Pentacles. Home life, the home itself, livelihood, income, you know, having stable income, stable livelihood, or if this were in retirement, you know, this would not be a retirement in poverty. This would be someone who can live comfortably and can take care of himself. So I would say that, you know, the energy of your father right now in the family is King of Pentacles, right? He lived a life where he probably could be the provider of and giving stability in the home and all of that. So that's interesting. So it's really about, we didn't get a card about his emotions. We didn't get a card about where his mind is. We didn't get a card about him wanting anything in particular. Like, it's not a wand about his like will, desires, things like that, passions. It's about being grounded, being the caretaker of the family or the home and all of that. So that's where his energy looks like. Let's look at your advice card. And let's remember, okay, so from before we did have strategy. So there was a lot of, you had like, I would say a lot of mental energy, and you're coming up on some sort of like rebirth. Something big is about to be birthed into your life. So let's see what ties it all together. Interesting. Okay, so the star, let me grab the other deck because I want to show you the card right before the star. And I have one right over, whoops, I have one right one nearby where all the cards are in order. So I can pull the one right before the 16. So number 16 is called the Tower, and if you look at the image, there was a crown on the top of the tower, which usually means success, like there's success, achievement, but then it's being struck by lightning. Something is like destroying everything that's been built up, and these people have jumped out of the tower trying to escape with their lives. So the tower is usually about, you know, it's a milestone in your life where everything gets shaken down to its foundation. So you've worked really hard, you've tackled a lot of things, you've created a lot of stuff in your life, but now you're being shaken down to your foundation. So the star, the advice card, or the guidance that's supposed to draw all of this together is that after you have shaken everything down to its foundations, basically there's a dark moment, if you could imagine, after the power's gone off, or like, you know, all the fires have been put out, you're in darkness. So what comes out? Like the first light after that dark time is a star. And the next two cards in the deck, just so you understand the progression, there's like the moon and the sun next. So you go from the tiny point of the star to the glow of the moon to now the bright sun that you can't even look at directly. So I would say that you're about to, like, just like with this rebirth of the Fool, the star is, you know, after some sort of catastrophe. This is like the renewal, and the advice of this card is usually like, where can you be a star? And not a star like in a Hollywood sense, but where can you, if Hollywood weren't a thing and we called you, you know, where can you be a star? Where can you shine to inspire others, inspire yourself? Excuse me. The advice in this card is to reflect and think about where can you draw on your strengths, where can you shine? And so since this is about your family and relationships, where can you use what you have at your core to be the star of your family, which might mean resolving the battle of wills, which might be helping bring balance over here, which might mean making sure that a legacy survives intact, like this sort of the groundedness, the happy home, all of these sorts of things. So as you are approaching this sort of phase of being born anew, emerging from a womb of some sort, and after having suffered a catastrophe in the tower, where can you be the star? And it did come up reversed, so I would say that clearly this is going to be very hard. And the other meaning of reversals is often that this sort of thing takes a long time. That's kind of like saying the same thing, though. Something that's really difficult does usually take a long time, else it wouldn't be difficult if you could do it lickety-split. So, but I think, if, as you look to where things are headed, I'd say things are very hopeful. These are very favorable cards. So I think eventually, you have a role in this whole drama that can really make things good and make things better and make things kind of repair the energies that are here. Like I said, tarot isn't about necessarily predicting the future because everybody has free will. So now that you've kind of gotten this advice, how can you use your talents to change the energies that we're getting today in this reading, right? The energy of today. And I think these cards indicate that you absolutely can change those energies. And by also using strategies, right? Like all the mental reflection that you've been doing and weighing of options over here, you can definitely, I think, succeed in getting what you want out of the relationships and shaping them. So I think that's about all I have to say. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope everything goes as well as it can with your father and your family. Take care.